My name is Pappal Suneja, and I am an architect, trained as an architect. And I'm currently pursuing my research at the Bauhaus Foundation, Germany. I also work as a country editor for World Architecture Community, and also run an organization, which is a not-profitable organization called Architectural Journalism and Criticism Organization India. I've authored two books related to architectural journalism. The first one was called Exploration of Architectural Journalism in India, and the second, Media Disciplines of Architectural Writing. We have amongst us Dr. Rupa Raji Gupta. She is a New Delhi-based architect and researcher, an alumnus of Chandigarh College of Architecture. She has pursued her research, including a MPhil and PhD from Welsh School of Architecture, Cardiff University, United Kingdom. And she has authored a book called The Courtyards of Araj of Maharashtra, and it was published in collaboration with NIASA, Council of Architecture. She's currently writing a sequel for her book, and is amongst us to tell us a little more about research and documentation. We have also amongst us architect Sangeet Sharma, who is an architect, an author, a thinker, a poet. He's the partner of SD Sharma and Associates from Chandigarh. He's also the founder chairman of A3 Foundation Chandigarh, and he has authored several books related to architecture. Some of his great books are Architecture Life in Me, Corpse Capital, which has been published in different languages as well. And his latest fictional attempt on castles in the air is quite famous. So I welcome all of you on board, and we will now begin with the session. It's going to be like a relay session. We will take a few topics first and then share opinions with each other. And at the end, we will have some question answer sessions with the audience. So I hand over the mic to Sangeet sir to begin with the first session, why architects should write. So you're unmuted. You need to unmute yourself. Yeah, perfect.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Pappal, for an elaborate introduction. Welcome aboard, Rupa. Welcome, Pappal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me over.
On this particular subject, which is absolutely vital for today's interception of profession, architecture journalism, I'm here to be a part of this panel. Just trying to say that why this panel was required. I mean, why should we write? I was just talking to each other and said that the starting point of this session should be, why do we need to write? In fact, why should architects write at all? Our language is pen and pencil. We sketch, we bring out of our mind. But at the end of the day, all art is expression. All architecture is a concept, and all concepts in every field of art needs to be exemplified. Even if I'm a sculptor, even if I'm a painter, I need to philosophize and I need to speak, and for that I need to write. So reading makes me knowledgeable. Writing makes me perfect, and this is what we were taught when we were young. So writing per se for an architect is very essential. Now let me go back to the history. Most of the top architects, say Corbusier or Frank Lloyd Wright or Mies van der Rohe and all those masters, they spoke and they also wrote, and that's how today, thanks to their writings, that we have the knowledge with us. So writing is something. It's like validating what you are doing. For an architect, you are validating when you write it. So this is important. Essentially, every professional needs to write, and it's a communication. And I think the medium is growing by leaps and bounds. And all those who can should, all those who cannot must. This is my take on this. Papal. Rupa, we can on to you, if you can say something.
I agree with you, Sangeet. What we really need to do is not just make buildings or design design buildings, you need to articulate whatever has been done. So the important thing is to write and have it documented and kept, so
Yes.
that so that other people can read about it, and it's not just spoken by the person who's made it. It has to be the principles behind it, or the principles of design behind it, or the philosophy behind it has to be articulated and understood by generations beyond. That
Superb.
is my.
Superb. In fact, I forgot the very important point which you are mentioning. Documentation. I mean, we are documenting for posterity, and we are documenting documenting for the people. Fantastic point, Rupa. Pappal. So, why do you write?
Sir, yes, I sincerely believe it's been quite a few years being into this particular research writing and journalism. I um, I believe that any act of happening hasn't happened if it is not published, you know. And how will we come to know our mistakes? What were the gaps? How do we need to improve and evolve unless and until we go back? And yes, documentation not only in terms of what buildings have been designed, you know. I think generating an audience from writing is also something which can lead to some kind of um, production and co-production of the public realm of the built environment that we are in. And I think in order to make it, in order to reach it to the public who are actually the benefactors, who will have some kind of say over it in terms of whether they appreciate it or whether there is some kind of mistakes that they need to highlight, you know. So a kind of dialogue is really important, and if you don't write, how will the dialogue happen? I mean, there are so many screens these days. Whom to believe, whom not to believe, you know.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think you have a point in saying this, Papal. Excellent. We are also writing to critique. We are in a profession where we are open to criticism. A, our own project, our own product is open to criticism. B, we have a right to critique. So we read and we write in order to critique our architecture per se. B, to comprehend. C, to transfer knowledge. Four, to showcase proper architecture. So I think all three of us are on the same board, and this has made a fantastic platform of today's dialogues. That yes, it's for a dialogue, and these four things are required to know why to write. This is amazing. Over to you, Papal. Yes.
Yes. And also, I would like to know Rupa ma'am's point of view as, ma'am, you have been into hardcore research plus practice. It's been so many years. You have also been into the practice realm of how to conceive architecture, and also the in-depth meaning of what was behind that particular execution. So, what do you feel? What lacks in today's generation in terms of writing about or expressing, for that matter?
It's really important to be able to write your thoughts down. In our schools, there hasn't been too much of emphasis on writing, or documenting or essaying your thoughts. The first time one really seriously starts writing is when one is applying for universities abroad, where you have these SOPs which are very elaborate. I think it's important right in the undergraduate program to be able to, focus on essay writing, because that is where you hone your writing skills. Your thoughts get articulated into the written word, and it's easier for people to assess where you're going to be heading.
Right. So as we speak, you know, I also want to take up the next topic. I mean, writing and journalism as a part of pedagogy. There have been a lot of debates, a lot of people in the field who say we have written to the national bodies of Council of Architecture, I, in terms of putting up this subject as not as an elective but a hardcore subject. But I want to put up a point. Why do we need to categorize it in terms of something which is only for the elite? I mean, writing and research, categorizing as a separate subject, we are categorizing another field which we consider needs some extra amount of effort. I mean, I understand there are some people who want to express maybe by making a vlog, making a comic, just sketching something. But I mean, what should be a part of the entire curriculum? I mean, in terms of a discussion, in terms of vocabulary, viva voce, why do we need to categorize it as a separate subject? I mean, why can't we inculcate in the existing subjects of design and other subjects that are taught in the bachelor's course?
So it is. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be off the normal curriculum. It has to be part of the curriculum. Essay writing is like it's like theory of design, which we had when we were in the at the BArch level. So it needs to be emphasized. It needs to be given a lot more. A lot
Importance.
more focus has to be given on this subject, and it's only so that you can put thoughts down on paper
True.
Excellent.
besides
Excellent.
It's what.
drawing. So the writing skills also, your drawing is there, but in order to push the drawing or to explain about the drawing or the design, the writing has to be alongside.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pappal, may I?
Yes, sir, please.
Uh, like as she said, Rupa says that theory of design and drawing we have as a subject where people slowly improve upon this. So I think writing can be a part of the syllabus, where students can understand, slowly improve upon it, but it must stop at a certain level, say at second year or third year. And all those who are really interested to pursue and take it forward, they can study forward. So I suggest that, like drawing, we have basics to be taught in first, second year, and then it's left to the person whether he or she wants to take over or not. I don't think many people would be interested to take up this as a profession, or take up this as a goal, or maybe the communicate or the skills to communicate or write a little lesser. So that's my take on it. That we should give them lessons, then stop it, and then that's your choice.
True. I
So,
mean,
but
you know,
sorry,
Yeah,
I
Rupa?
do
yes.
think that,
Ma'am.
I do think that this is happening even now because you are given the choice, and then those who want to pursue it further do go ahead with it.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that this is very nice. Yes, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, today we are in a situation whereby it is it is difficult for people to read, forget about writing, and there have been a lot of instances whereby I would say that you know I understand that English is not a first language, and this is a situation globally, like considering today I'm one of the fellows out of 11 people from 9 different countries. None of us have English as the first language, and none of us have also learned German during our school days. So the communication is more on content basis and not on judging person in terms of what their vocabulary is, in terms of what confidence do they have. So I think there's a myth in the brain of a lot of people globally. I mean, rather a prejudice that you need to have a good command over your language to express better. Yes, it is an additive, an additional point, but content cannot be compromised with the expression of thoughts or oratory skills. Ma'am, Rupa, ma'am, what do you have to say for it?
So you do require a subject to research upon in order to go ahead with writing, because when you have research as your content, and that can go on to any extent. For instance, when I did my PhD from England, I did it over a period of 5 years. So for 4 years, I was documenting the this house form across the length and breadth of the state of Maharashtra. I had to collate all the data, get it together, put it in some kind of an order, and when I put it in and then classify it, the outcomes of that I had to put down in words and make an essay out of that. So you already have a base for your writing. It's not, there are people who write fiction. For them, it is their thoughts put in words. But research writing is totally different, wherein you're getting some material from your own research and then moving forward with it.
Right. Yes, ma'am. I think I wanted to emphasize that I think Sangeet sir can add to that thing. Um, Only oratory skills or skills whereby you can speak better is not sufficient, because your knowledge will be restricted to only the people you are hearing, maybe your professors, maybe you're watching YouTube videos, but the content, the content which is required, that you will only have after, just like you said, after researching a lot or after reading a lot. That Sangeet sir, if you could add the difference between the two.
Yeah, see, writing is directly proportional to what you're reading. So they say that if you want to write 2 pages, you have to read 10 pages. So your reading and writing is proportional. Secondly, research, as Rupa ma'am has said, that yes, it is a very important subject because we are into a technical profession. So we research something for which we want to speak and write about it. That's a separate issue. But Papal, I must tell you that because writing is essentially a tool fabrication.
Right.
So the technique is important, like any other art, like any other science.
Yeah.
So you are requiring a technique, you are requiring tools. Our tools are words in writing. So as I said, that so basic knowledge of writing, reading, oratory, speaking is essential. And then after that, that knot should be open. Leave them free. Who all those who want to take it further is their choice.
Right. It very well brings us to our next topic in agenda: the tools for
Bef-
architecture journalism.
Before that, Papal, if I may, Madam Rupa, you have when you were doing your research, you did quite late in your life, and when we were talking in Chandigarh, you said that you had a pretty tough times. I want the audience to hear that story. I mean, for a lady at that choice at that time, how and how you did it, it was wonderful. You must listen to this, Rupa.
Yes, Sangeet. So I did my research as late as in 2003, and that's when I had two children, growing children. One was 10 and one was 13, so they were already in middle school. That was a challenge in itself, uh, running home. But I got this bursary from the British government, and I got an opportunity to study with at Prasada, which is Practice Research Advancement in South Asian Design and Architecture under Professor Adam Hardy, and I couldn't just refuse that. It was a very, very coveted bursary. The choices were far and in between, but I had the support, complete support of my husband and the family, and therefore I just took it up as a huge challenge and went and studied there for 5 years, studied in England for 5 years, came back, did my data collection. The children were on their own, the husband was on his own, and but they managed well. I
Wow.
can't say it was smooth sailing, but the home was a library for 5 years, and I think Vivek was fed up by the end of it. Uh, Absolutely fed up, yes. So that kind of egged me on and pushed me on in getting and trying to complete it within the time frame that, there are a lot of people who postpone it or ask for extra
Extension.
time. I didn't have the liberty of doing all of that, so I had to do it within the time frame. Uh, the one thing, so it was a huge struggle at that time with the children growing, the house functioning as it was, me leaving home, going. But I enjoyed every moment because I was a student back on campus when I went from here, and I came back, and then a mother here, and then again I had to step out and get into investigating and doing my research in the state of Maharashtra. So it involved huge amount of travel. I had a job on at that time. I had a corporate job on, very demanding job. So it was juggling. It was life was I was a juggler, complete juggler at that point in time. But enjoyed every moment of it really.
I'm sure, Rupa. Vivek must be a very proud husband, and so are we, and so is the fraternity. Welcome aboard. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
That's why I said that the audience will be very inspired to see this story.
Hmm.
Yes, Papa, over to you.
So yes, we come to the craft, as ma'am also told a little about her personal insights, and we were talking about words as our tools. So
Yeah,
we come to the craft of the entire profession of writing.
yeah,
So what all could we support today? Today, we are at a digital age whereby we have so many different platforms available, so many different ways of expression and representation. So if we compare to the craft of the entire profession, we could today have not only we could have photographs, we could have kind of graphics, also the jargons or the buzzwords. I mean, let's have some little discussion upon what are the tools required for beginning. A lot of people don't know how to start. They need a template, or unless and until they make their own craft, develop their own craft, they are not able to move ahead. So let's just talk a little more about the tools that are required for writing, basic tools, I mean.
Gopal, I think you are the finest person in this. Please continue. Please elaborate. Please elaborate.
Yes. So, I mean, there are a lot of platforms or softwares which could help. I mean, students keep asking me, like, there is paperrater.com. There are a lot of other softwares. Now we have Grammarly as well, which is easily accessible to all the emails or all the official documents. Um, I believe, today I would also like to take up a point from Rupa ma'am after this statement. Whatever we see in terms of the architectural write-ups or publications, there are buildings, there is text, building text, building text. There's nothing like opinion or a kind of your personal analysis to it. So how did we lose that, ma'am?
So I think take a topic which is close to your heart, which you really, really feel strongly about. Don't be random. Uh, Put it down on paper. Do your research extremely well. You come out with your data. First, you have a lot of data which is randomly collected. You need to kind of classify all your data, get it in order. Uh, the outcomes of that, you just cannot write vaguely. There has to be an analysis of what you're doing. So, and that'll come out only when you studied in depth about whatever you want to do, really.
Right. I mean, there's a big question. Is Wikipedia a tool? No. I mean, I would like to tell to the entire audience that Google Scholar is a better tool than Wikipedia, and you should be very careful what to consider as the source, the primary source or the secondary sources. And
I I think, Pappal, I would really not depend on any of these tools, because when I did my research, it was completely first-hand. I covered about 30 towns, 75 vadas on. I mean, it was a first-hand experience. I did do a lot of reading, but then the primary source of investigation was actually going and seeing it for myself. Because when you go and see it for yourself, that's where you come out with your own analysis, and that's what research is all about. It is not, you do depend on people's works, because that is secondary research, but the primary research is what you're doing yourself. So it really means going physically and studying the whole thing and getting your point of view or your analysis. That is what is
right,
a good research analysis.
Great.
right. Sangeet sir, is interview a tool? Sangeet sir,
Interview.
yeah. Do you think it's a tool?
It's before that, Papal, I'd like to speak, taking a cue from your own talks, which you just said now. Uh, uh, there would be no serious architectural writing unless people begin to positively critique a building. You said that if you open the journals today, there's an image, there's a description, image, description. That's not what is required. The architect knows that this is the plan. The viewer knows this is the whole image. But unless there is a serious criticism involved, when I say criticism, not pulling somebody's leg, it is that you are trying to critique a project in itself. Unfortunately, we in India lack that. There may be a few, I mean, very few, but we essentially lack that. And on the global level, we have again very few. Now, why is that? A, because the awareness is less. B, very few people who are writers actually engage themselves in trying to be a part of the critique.
Right.
The journals would not like to bring on people on board who actually can say good or bad about of a building. I mean, it could jeopardize the whole process of printing. But then, all said and done, we need those honest, truthful writers who can say what is what. Okay. B. Uh, is interview and all those tools are, yeah, are important. Uh, but as Rupa said, as you said, that everything around us is a part of the research, is a part of the growth. All those opportunities are bringing you closer to your craft. Now there are four kind of things which you can experiment on. There is fiction, there is poetry, there is non-fiction, and architecture writing. Everything is entwined, and I think one needs to have a knowledge about basics of all this to become an architecture critic. Papal.
Right. And sir, I think there's a very wrong explanation to critique. People think that if we're saying something negative, that is only critique. I mean, criticism could be really positive. I mean, like I said when I began, why do we need to write? Because we need to consider our own mistakes, after a certain point of time that we did earlier, and we want to evolve, we want to become better, we want to fill the gap that is existing in our understanding and what is actually required. And they could, the tools could vary depending upon the research question, depending upon what are you searching about. I would like to state and emphasize for the people who are listening to us that finding something on Google, reading 5 6 articles doesn't mean that you have done enough research to write about it. And in case you want to do that, you must mention and follow the ethics, mention, cite them properly. I think this is the basic thing that I see a lot of portals these days uh, who are just sharing information. I understand, we are in a stage of a gram generation. We have Facebook, we have Twitter. In that as well, you're sharing an image, you're picking up from some source. It just takes 1 second to mention what is the original source. And you can't simply say that because you have searched or because you've compiled some data that is of your own.
Yeah.
So that is also a big question.
So,
Yes.
interview, as you
Sorry.
said, interview. Sorry, Rupa, just 1 minute. You said,
Yes.
is interview a tool? It is for an architecture journalist, for an architecture critique. It is best to speak to the originator. If he's speaking to the architect who made a project, I think 90% his job is done. 10% is his own IQ, his own imagination, own evolution, how he or she can justify a project. It's very important. I mean, to write, to criticize uh, Corbusier, you have to be a Corbusier. So in the sense that you have to be
Of
have
that level.
of that level. So you are actually evolving. You're growing with time, and that's how you become an architecture critic. Today's whole talk was on architecture journalism. So there is architecture and there is journalism. So they're two diverse words. I think 45 minutes are less to talk about it.
Let's.
We just started. We just hit the nail. Rupa,
Right.
you're saying something.
Yes, I just want to add that interviews are really, really an integral part of the research process, because that's what gives you first-hand information from the
Yeah.
designers, or people who've been involved in the making of that building or structure. I studied a 350-year-old house form, but in the 75 odd vadas that I studied, I did go and meet the people who were living in those structures, because that's where you get first-hand information of how spaces were being utilized or what were the pros and cons of the spaces. So the interview process is a very, very important process. It tells you the story of what happened before, what is going on now, and what the structure would finally, lead into, whether it was going to be dismantled or whatever was going to be the state of it. So I think this is a very, very important tool. The interview process is a very important tool for research.
Right.
Excellent.
We'll quickly take our last topic and then we will answer the questions from the audience. So,
I was just saying, Papal, that the three
yes,
of us have got such diverse tools
true. Yeah,
tools of writing. Rupa is a totally research oriented. She goes to the sites, visited it. You have written a fantastic book on journalism. So much of research has gone into it. I know how much you slogged over it. I write through observation and inspiration only.
true.
I don't go to, I haven't visited any site. I didn't do any research. It's all my mind and my heart, connection between my mind and my heart and my words. So I read it on fiction, non-fiction, satire, poetry, all those things. So good. I don't have to go anywhere. Well done, Papa. And, and
So, yeah,
But I
as
think
we're
that's the
talking about
toughest
it,
part,
yeah,
Sangeet, when you don't have to go
true.
and when you're just doing it for your mind. That is
Find out
that's
something
like
new
the
every
biggest
now and
challenge.
then.
I wouldn't be able to do, Sangeet.
so we do that. Yes, Papa. Over to the last
Yeah,
question.
very, very simply, our next topic comes into picture. I think it's quite organic. We never thought it would happen like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know what are the different types of architectural publications.
Hmm.
So we'll quickly just talk about a few. Like we have two types of magazines. We have base to base, the magazine which architecture or architecture fraternity does for a set of people. It could be like a conference proceeding. It could be like uh, biannually or a annual yearbook that different organizations do. And another one which is more important is the base to community, that the base the architects a fraternity write for the community. So half of the people don't understand that there are two different typologies of an architecture magazine. If you consider inside outside, that is for base to community, because anybody could read it in terms of the simple language, in terms of sharing ideas and expression. Then we have coffee table books, brochures, journals, vlogs. Today we have podcast, IGTV interviews. We have a lot of different types of architectural writings and publications that could come into being. And very rightly said, Sangeet sir has written more of satire, fiction, poetry, and more about the romanticism with Chandigarh. Rupa ma'am has done hardcore research, on-site research on the heritage structures of Maharashtra, whereby we are all waiting for the sequel to come, which is on the courtyards of the Wadas of Maharashtra. And I have actually, in the journey of self-introspection, I've just kept on exploring different topics and different fields, and I think the journey must continue and go on. So I would like to know your opinions before we take the questions from the audience.
The journey must go on, and there's no dearth of it. And I think it's the process. The process has to go on, and as you get involved, you grow. The more involved you get, the more you grow. That's all.
Right, Rupa ma'am.
It's extremely important to write, document for future generations. I mean, it cannot
Right,
stop with you. That's what it is. And the reason why my the PhD was interpreted into a book was only because my supervisor, Professor Adam Hardy, said, "I want to see the volume of your book in my library," and that's what inspired me and pushed me into working on the book, which was for 2 years post my
Wow,
doctoral research.
that's
wow,
super.
that's
That's
brilliant.
super. That's super. Great.
Right. So we have a few people who have asked a few questions. One of the fellow is asking, what are the challenges faced in architectural journalism?
You answer this, Papal.
Okay, so I think it is to each one its own, and it depends upon what kind of journey you want to proceed with in terms of um, your own exploration, your own mindset. And I think we are quite fortunate that there are no set rules or standards to it. So it's an open playground to play and explore.
Super. Super. Wonderful.
Lovely.
So I think another question we have: for writing a deep research is required. How should an effective research be done? So I think Rupa ma'am can take it.
Yes, she
Yes.
already spoken. Yes,
So
tell us.
Yeah,
the first thing that one should do is choose a topic which is really close to your heart, study the aims, scope, methodology of all of that, and go explore, do your data collection. And data collection has to be organized and classified, organized, and then sieve out points from your data collection. Which, I mean, the inferences are yours, and that's why it's called research. The reason you call it research is only because that's your baby. It's not, you've studied other people's works, you've got information from all sources from everywhere. I wouldn't go onto Wikipedia or Google. That is we didn't do that because that was many years ago, and we weren't that tech savvy. But writings of other people's, etc., you just get hold of all of that, but the inferences are your own. And therefore do that, and then you start editing is hard work. The first amount of writing, you think, oh, you've done a brilliant job, when you do your first edit. When you read it the second or third time, you realize, oh, it should have been better than this. So never give up on editing. Editing and editing is required for a good research writing.
true. And the more precise we are, we find.
Absolutely, and you cannot just forego that thing of editing. You cannot sit back and say, "No, I did a great job of it," because when you reread it, you realize, oh, there were. So you have to go through every word, every article, every comma, every full stop, and see, is this what you are conveying? Is this the? So you don't have to go fancy in your words. Don't write elaborate fanciful sentences. No, simplify your language, be grounded, but convey what has to be conveyed. That is important.
Yeah.
We'll take some more questions. We have a question from Mr. Manish Yadav. Architectural theory covers syllabus in the syllabus, but colleges don't focus on it. Sangeet sir, what do you have to say?
I just said that yes, colleges don't focus on it because there is not much demand. And if you all will say that we want to study this subject and we want to learn about architecture journalism or writing, it will come. It's all demand and supply. But nevertheless, as I said, that as of now, if there is a elective subject, please take on. And as Rupa ma'am says and Pappal says that ultimately it's an open book. It's all yours. It's a clean slate. So what you do is learn a bit, rest, do it yourself. Yeah, we all do it ourselves. It's perfectly fine. Go ahead.
So we have another question. Do you think that the kind of language used or style of writing validates your content somewhere from a perspective of a reader? Kunal is asking this question.
May,
I will
may,
repeat it again.
yeah.
Do you think that the kind of language used or style of writing validates your content somewhere from a perspective of a reader?
May I answer this question?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if I'm writing for architects, or say if I'm writing for an architectural journal, it must adhere to the language which architectural journals demand. If I'm writing poetry, it has to be in the meter and the system of poetry. So you are targeting your specific audience. When I write a satire, it's some to make laugh and wit about a profession. So you have an audience in the mind, you have your tools, and then you have your craft. That's how it goes. It's definitely you are writing for a specific audience. Next.
Yeah, we have another question from Natasha Saraswati. Those who want to pursue this subject don't know the way ahead. What can be done in that case? So okay,
You
I
You
will
tell
answer
them.
this
You tell
question.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly speaking, when I began, it's been just 4 years. I've graduated recently. I finished 4 years after my graduation. So it was an empty road. There were just a handful of people pursuing hardcore architecture journalism in the country, and I always used to aspire to participate in workshops, competitions, and write. So today we still have some platforms and portals, but at that time there was none. So I created my own platforms and portals. I think you need to be self-motivated. There are still, I think it's a long road to go in terms of getting into the field. But if you're self-motivated and you have passion to do it, I think the dots will get connected and you can easily take it forward. So we will take
Really well
another
said.
question. Yeah, right. Thank
Yes,
you.
because
A very long
architecture is
question.
not only about designing buildings. You have to be. You don't have to only design buildings. There are people who want to write about them. So I'm really happy, Pappal, that you followed your heart.
Right. Yes,
Uh,
thank you.
I take a bit of credit in identifying Pappal's fantastic talent in writing when he applied in the A3 Foundation competition and he won an award many years ago.
Right. 7 years ago, sir.
7 years,
It's
7 years ago.
7 years,
Wow, that's
September 2013.
Oh, that was
My
fantastic.
goodness. Yeah.
And I didn't know who this talented boy was, and it was you, Pappal. Great. God bless you.
Thank you.
Next.
Right. So we have another question. Is doing architectural writing along with practicing as an architect and as an architect better? If yes, how? Sangeet sir, please answer.
Yes, I'm the live example, friend, whoever asking this question. I'm a practicing architect, but I also write. And I must tell you, the very few practicing architects write. And I must
True.
also tell you that the practicing architect who write, they are heard the most. Mr. Charles Correa has written some books, they are widely read. And the people who, because when you are on the base, when you're on the ground on earth, when you build yourself, then when you speak about it, I think it makes a difference. Also, but that doesn't mean that you're not writing about architecture. Then you are writing, reading about architecture from the other side. I am writing from this side. So building, writing, building, it validates each other.
Right.
fantastic. Yes.
There's another very big question. Let me try to take a little part of it by Shuruk. She says that she's doing some research and she's not doing a conventional thesis project. She's doing a thesis on writing, and she wants to know how can we flourish in this particular field, and she wants to have a little more guidance available for it. So, yeah. Like I said before, you need to just keep moving ahead. I think Sharuk, you're quite lucky that your dean at your university allowed you to do a research-based thesis, which is actually not the norm as per the Council of Architecture and the conventional studies that we are in. But if you have got this opportunity, you should use it well and leave no stone unturned to try to find out why you chose this particular path. One. Second, yes, in any field, not only in terms of writing related to architecture, any field that you start first, you are the first one to do it, right? You can say, let me give a small example. You can say that you don't want to design a hospital because, say, 5,000 people have already designed. You're going to design it for the first time. So anything that you do, you're going to do it for the first time. So instead of looking for any kind of precedence, you should try to carve your own path and try to take as much help that you can, which is available on board from people. Take some guidance, interview people, talk more about it, have a good engage a good audience, make a really good dialogue about it. And I think there's nothing that you can't do. It's very easy. Okay, we have another question from Kritika. um, Architects don't write. Okay, yes, we discussed about it. Therefore, it is a less trodden path. So, how can a fresher give a start to the journey towards architectural journalism? Sangeet sir, please. You have inspired a lot of freshers and architects. So, what do you feel? How a fresher should start? The first step.
Uh, four rules. Four rules, Kritika. Is it right? Her name is
Yeah,
Kritika.
pick it up.
Four rules. A, read a lot. B, keep your mind and eyes open because if you're writing about architecture, you should know about architecture. It's not fiction. It's not something from your mind. It's something which you see. See, you have to talk about the things relevant about the building. Many people write, out of the stock or something which they feel like. There's no question of feel like in architecture. If you're making a critique, it has to be about the building. Fourth, know about your craft. Lastly, how to start. I think there is no rule about that. Pick up the paper today, read a magazine, pick up the paper, take a building, take the beautiful Lotus Temple in Delhi, and let me see how you write. Write a page, and as she has said, Rupa ma'am has said that edit it yourself. Try to do that full stops and commas, and read yourself. If you like it, the world will like it. Right, Papal?
Yes, very true. Or I could also give another small tip. For
Yeah.
instance, you've written something, maybe you've written a small paragraph. I think today's generation can relate better. You put it on Google, ask Google to read it for you. While Google reads it for you, you will definitely identify mistakes. I understand maybe you can't request a family member or your parents to read it for you loud, or maybe you read loud, to understand what is missing, where are the mistakes, how do you connect the dots. And secondly, I think as you begin, there should be a sequence to come back to where you started and answering to the five major questions that we always talk about, or you will be able to read it on internet as well, in terms of what, when, where, how, and who. If you are able to answer all these five questions well in your write-up, I mean, if you're writing a small write-up for your own understanding of for a particular expression of a building, a detailed analysis, if you answer these five W's, though there is a H involved, we call it as five W's, you will definitely can develop a template of your own. So let us take maybe one last question from the audience. Yes, it is from a girl, and I think this question is pretty well for Rupa ma'am. It's a long question, so let me try to read a part of it. Uh, there's a girl called Aniksha, okay. She's pursuing her research, and she says, as students, we are treated like rebels just because we want to express our thoughts the way we are most comfortable with. It really doesn't need to be such a battle. How do we change that?
Writing is not rebellious. Writing is from the heart. So I don't think there's any rebellion. That just go for it. That's it.
True, very true, ma'am. And I think you should keep that rebel in your heart and not express it out, because the way our the profession has been built up, rather I should say the way we have been brought up in terms of the architectural profession, or any profession for that matter, anybody who would be correct also and maybe raises a voice is not considered good. And like I used to be quite tempered in my thoughts earlier, but after coming to Germany, the way people treat you with that much sensitivity and respect, in terms of even if you don't agree to what they're saying, they will just slightly nod, and you will come to know that there is a gap. You need to add something, and if you improve that, the change of expression will make you happy. So I think maybe keep that fire inside yourself. I think you can take inspiration from the quote of Dushant Kumar, whereby he said, किसी के दिल में तो आग लेकिन आग लगनी चाहिए. And I think that kind of rebellious attitude should rather shape you as a person, your career, your way of working, rather than making a stigma about yourself in terms of the group of people you're associated with. And in journalism, as Sangeet sir also spoke, it's good that there is no rules to be followed. It's more of flexible, to each one its own. So yes, Sangeet sir, you want to add something?
Uh, don't be a rebel in your speech, but be a rebel in your heart. Be a
Right.
rebel, and absolutely all the world's best literature is a piece of rebellion. It's all rebellion, and writers, authors are basically rebels. So you
True.
don't need to be be showing that you are, but in between your heart and mind, you should be gone. Be a
Right.
rebel. Yeah,
Let's take some
Well,
parting messages. Yeah, Rupa ma'am, any parting message?
I've said it. Rupa will do it.
nothing can stop you if you want to do something. So don't think for, especially for the young girls and the young women, women architects. The marriage of children don't stop you from doing anything. Just go for it. But be good at home.
Fantastic.
Okay, so yes, I would like to wind up saying that I think it's more about identifying yourself. It's about leading your own journey. I don't think so. We are in a time whereby we should think of competition around, because there's enough for everybody on the plateau. And if your work is good, if you are going in the right direction, you have a passion to do it, I think there's no stopping back. There's no turning back. Just keep moving. And till today, I feel that my journey has not even started. So if you keep that spirit in your mind, you'll definitely move ahead, achieving the unheard, the unexplored in yourself.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
And I wish to thank the platform. I wish to thank Guneet and Papal. I
Right.
wish to thank you for initiating this beautiful dialogue. How the 1 hour has passed, it was
Yeah,
just
sure. Yes.
fantastic. And thank you, Rupa, for coming on board and bringing us
Thank
all
you,
together.
Sadhguru, for having me over,
And
Pappal and Guneet for coordinating this whole show. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, audience. Thank you for your patience listening. So we'll say sayonara for the time being.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay.